I did not fight, so that when I walk through a town centre, I'm videoed by people who are monitoring my behaviour. I'm a grandfather, and I'm also a father, and I know that there are fathers and grandfathers in this very audience. But everyone that came here today, you are right warriors. And you're warriors that understand what peace means. Because in reality, it's those types of warriors that end up being the most powerful warriors. And of course, at this moment in time, we find ourselves in a situation where I believe that the way we're being treated is disproportionate to a threat. When I served my time in the military, I was an analyst. And as an analyst, I question everything. Because I'm not interested in Boris's opinion. Opinions come from character. And Boris does not have a character. If you want to know what somebody's going to do in the future, just watch what they've done in the past. They'll show you. And so what is our job? Our job is to raise awareness peacefully. Because I know that I've been called a conspiracy theorist. Well, I can tell you this. If a conspiracy is a conspiracy, it has a habit of turning into a fight when you measure it. And I'm in the world of measurement. What have I measured? As a person who used to prepare people for war through mental and physical conditioning, which was my job, I wore the cap badge of only 330 people throughout the whole of the British Army. And my job was to mentally and physically prepare people for combat. That's what it was. So I understand when we start to get very short messages and we start to experience people squeezing us and letting us go, squeezing us and letting us go, so that we eventually get to a point where we think that the squeeze is us being let go. I know that something's happening behaviourally. And of course this is what I've experienced. So I've seen how we get confusion coming from the top, because you know, guess what? When we confuse people, they become highly suggestible. And then if we put fear in that space, we tell them about something that has never actually been isolated in its own right, and I can prove that academically. Then when people become confused, they become highly suggestible. And whatever we suggest as a route out of that pain, for the majority, they're naturally going to take whatever they think seems reasonable. And all you need to do with that group of people is tell them that it's in their own interest, and in the interest of their families and all the people that they love, and they will do that very quickly. Well, guess what? Statistically speaking, analytically speaking, I can assure you that I've done my homework. I sat with a guy that had literally requested 1,300 freedom of information requests, and he asked 5 specific questions around COVID to all the police forces, to all of the NHSs, the hospitals and public services. And I can tell you now, what the government are telling you right now is in complete contradiction to the freedom of information requests that he found information from. There is huge disparity in those figures. I'm also a personal safety and public order trainer, so I understand the police's job. I understand how they engage with the public, how they're meant to. And I was down in Trafalgar, and by the way, I can't imagine a world without police. I really can't. Because in reality, when a constable does their job, which is to be autonomous and to follow the rule of law and to make that decision on his or her own in that moment, that's what they're trained to do. But what we are currently seeing, and what I experienced down in Trafalgar, was an agent. I experienced people doing what they were told to do. Now, if you look at the police as a group of people, they're in our community. I've got some really good mates that are police people, and I still work with them. Because guess what? When we look for peace, we can find commonality. But when we become agents, we follow the instructions of someone else, we become an order follower. And order followers in history are the most dangerous people that have ever existed. Because testing that's dodgy, the R rate. I can tell you now, the R rate will never get below 1 if you keep testing people with dodgy tests. It will never get below 1. What was given to us right at the start of this, was designed to flatten the curve, was way off the mark. That's a fact. And any analyst that looks at those numbers can tell you that. My partner, Victoria, she's a bit of a statistician in her own right. She looked at the ONS figures for a period of 10 years. And I can tell you now, what we're being told does not match what we found. You know, if you go back to 2018, 60,000 people died of flu. Did we lock down our communities then? It is predicted that over 200,000 people are going to die from no treatment. I was chatting to a doctor last week, and I interviewed a doctor for 60 minutes to find out her interpretation of what's gone on from start to finish. And I'm more than happy to show you that video if you ask for it. But her conclusion was, we are being lied to. That's her conclusion. And I'll tell you something else that I find very, very divisive. I've never seen in my lifetime, how one mask can divide so many people. And are you telling me that the person who created that rule did not know that? Because when you have 77 Brigade, which is a brigade from our own British Army, advising the government against their own people, for me that is fundamentally wrong. Do I believe that anyone knows what is happening at a high level? No, I don't. I just think that if you work on an old military premise, which is it's a need-to-know basis, some people know more than others. And then the others just become the perpetrators of the rules that they're given. Now, here's my biggest challenge. If we look at the rights that we hold, just for the very nature of the fact that we're born, those rights are the right to gather peacefully. We didn't get that right in London. The right to speak peacefully. We didn't get that right in London either. But the most basic human right that we seem to have already relinquished on some levels is the right to your own bodily integrity. What does that mean? It means that no one gets the right to tell you what you put inside your body, or the bodies of your children. And that includes a test. So what can we do about it? Well, I'll tell you what I've already done about it. I've heard common law, I don't understand it. But I do know that we have maritime law. That's the law that we currently abide within. And I have no question to doubt any of the other models, other than that I don't understand them. And I only do things that I understand. So I have served a notice of liability to a number of people. The first one was the Surgeon General, the man who dishes out vaccines to the British Army, the British Forces, the person who says how they're treated. I personally have sat with over 4,000 veterans individually, at the level of getting them well mentally. And I have seen, through the patterns and the stories that I hear, how the Gulf War veterans came back damaged from vaccine. Neurological damage, MS, Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, and not only that, when they start to bear children, it's interesting how some of those children bear some of the same situations. So as an analyst, I tend to pay attention to that. And that's really, really important, because where are we going with this? Well, we serve a notice of liability to warn the person that is giving the sign of approval to that lets them know that they are accountable for that. Last night I was in Liverpool, and I served 2 notices of liability to the 2 mayors that are currently standing in Liverpool. Because guess what? The other one's just been hoofed out of office. Why? Because he's a criminal, potentially. Because he's a criminal. And there's one thing you learn in war, guys. There's one thing you learn in war. When you give somebody power or money, it simply amplifies who they really are at the level of their values. That's what it does. So you see their essence behaviourally. I came out of the world of imagination a long time ago. This is why I serve notices. So the 2 mayors in Liverpool will now be aware that everything that they do with their constituents downline as a result of COVID, that I believe is a disproportionate response to the actual threat when you measure the data. And I'm not on my own, by the way, because I'm also part of the World Freedom Alliance. assure you now, there are countries from all over the world joining that alliance. Are they all conspiracists? There are thousands of doctors. There are so many specialists in that space, but you know, guess what? We can have specialists, we can have doctors, but you know the people that really have the power, more than anything, is you. So never make the mistake of thinking that you're powerless. And I always say this, tell your truth even if your voice shakes. So we serve notices of liability to those that are perpetrating some of these measures on us and are squeezing us and letting us go. If you honestly believe that Boris is going to let us out in January, you're kidding yourself. How could we have known that 7 months ago? How could we have possibly known that? Because when I told all of my mates, guess what they said? Rubbish. And I bet every person in this space right now can put their hand up and say that they've had the same experience. And the great thing is, online, you can always point them back to what you said 7 months ago and say, tell me how much of that is rubbish. But we have to be gentle. We have to be gentle, because in reality, when you start to raise people's awareness around what's potentially going to happen, that makes them scared. And fear will either make you run, fight or freeze. If the enemy is bigger than you, you'll run. If it's comparable, you might freeze. But if it's smaller than you, you'll fight. And guess what? We need to fight peacefully, because it is smaller than us. If you look at the veteran community, you might just think that you're the only people that are stood here that are paying attention to what we're saying right now, and that your gathering is only this size, right? But it's not a massive gathering, is it? But it's a quality gathering. I can tell you now, from my experience with all the guys I'm talking to, there are an awful lot of people that are in the wings waiting. We have nearly 4 million veterans in this country. And the majority of those veterans signed up to defend their communities. We are a professional army. We have great relationships with our soldiers. It's those relationships that we're going to rely on as things start to develop. And they will develop. There's no doubt in my mind. We've just got to spread the word. So I'm going to say this. Say no. Never acquiesce. Never sacrifice what you really value inside. Because if you value your children and your grandchildren, if you have them and you're lucky enough to have them, or you value your friends, you will stand up and be counted. And this message goes out to all the veterans out there. This is a reminder that we signed up to defend our community. So women, get the men rallied. Get the men ready to stand to what we need to stand to. And we'll all look at that. Everyone that wants to be included, and we will resist everyone that wants to be on the opposition. I thank you for listening, and I wish you all well, and I know that we're going to have a march whenever. And remember this, whenever you think you're on your own, you're not.